have the tools to send somebody out in the world to get the help that they need. What I really ended up doing was just bearing witness to their experience. And sometimes that's the best thing we can do for someone if they're grieving or they've experienced loss, isolation, is to just bear witness to it, to say, I see you, I hear you, I know what you're going through, and I'm really sorry for that. And that has been that's been hard for me to sit back, but I think it's a tool that I'm going to take with me for the rest of my career, because it's forced me to acknowledge that I'm not really here as a mental health counselor to fix everybody's problems. I'm here to journey with them through their own problems, knowing that those problems are going to exist regardless, often. And I want to acknowledge too that what you all have experienced this year has just been an insurmountable amount of pain that you've witnessed, and you have also been, bearing witness to others and their journey, and I know that's been a lot to them as well. And I also know that there's some trauma involved in that. I don't know about you all, but I have seen people age. I've seen relatively healthy older adults age drastically, and then I've seen people with memory impairment age drastically. I thought initially I was like, it's like watching somebody slowly die in front of me, but then I'm like, that's what dementia is. You've been watching that all along, but this is actually watching somebody quickly die in front of you. And this is the effects that social isolation has on older adults and people with dementia, especially. And I know that there's some burnout that I've experienced, and I'm assuming that there's been some burnout that you all have experienced too, but we're staying steady and continuing to do that hard work. And hopefully, as most of our clients are getting vaccinated first before the rest of the population, it's really helped my spirits just to see them get excited, to kind of come out from hiding, to see their grandkids again. As we were talking about the assisted living facilities, I have clients who haven't touched their spouses in a year, since last March. And I still lead support groups at the memory counseling program. And it's heartbreaking to witness that, a wife who hasn't gotten to touch her husband, who can't, and he doesn't know why she isn't coming there for hugs anymore. And I know that you all have witnessed that as well, on a professional level and possibly on a personal level too. So this is my counseling, actually, having you guys here as I talk through this and sharing in that pain. We know that isolation and loneliness are detrimental to our health and well-being. One, because we've seen it firsthand this year. But two, there's a really important study that came out years ago that said that the pain of isolation and loneliness is just as detrimental to our physical health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And so here we are this year, we've been smoking it up together, and that's it. Like, cardiovascular issues are real side effects of isolation. And as deadly as the pandemic is, we've been watching this secondary death happen to a lot of people. We've lost 500,000 people because of COVID, but how many more are we losing because of the secondary side effects and the lack of resources that older adults have? So in working with clients, I have been really focusing on acknowledging the pain that people experience, acknowledging that I can't solve all of their problems, that I don't have that magic wand that's going to make everything better. And a lot of the work I do in helping people acknowledge their pain is because most of us have a tendency to numb the pain. If we feel an emotion that's too big to feel, we just want to suppress it. If I feel the weight of this pain, it might sink me. I might sink into a depression and never come out again. Or if I start crying, I'm never going to stop. And so we have a tendency just to numb it all together. The problem with that is that we can't just isolate a few negative emotions to numb out. We end up numbing out all of our emotions. I think about, I've had this imagery of aluminum foil, like wrapping aluminum foil around our heart, keeping it, kind of cold and isolated from the world, from the rest of our feelings. So we numb the pain, but we also numb the joy. And the reality is that we can have both. We can have grief, we can have joy, we can have pain, we can have laughter, we can carry all of these. And that's what life is, actually, is carrying both of them. If we've lived through anything in life, we know that life is pain and life is suffering. And we have to choose to find ways to find enjoyment and joy in the pain as well. So I talk to people a lot about just allowing your heart to crack open. As you know, that aluminum foil has gotten really tight and is starting to suffocate us. Listen to music that evokes passion. Read a love poem that stirs, you know, strong emotions. Write a story where you're the protagonist going on a grand adventure. Like, just allow your heart and your mind to expand into this creative realm of art and music, so that you can start feeling the stirring of the depth of your feelings. I have a poem that I read for my own practice in this stirring of emotions. It makes me cry. Sometimes it makes other people, actually it makes my sister cry every time I read it to her, and I've read it to her at least 3 times now. But I'm going to read it to you all as well. It's called Love Does That. And it's from Love Poems from God, 12 Sacred Voices from the East and West by Daniel Ladinsky. And I can share some of these resources with Linda to then pass around afterwards, because I'm going to reference a few different books and practices. Okay, love does that. All day long, a little burro labors, sometimes with heavy loads on her back, and sometimes just with worries about things that bother only burros. And worries, as we know, can be more exhausting than physical labor. Once in a while, a kind monk comes to her stable and brings a pear. But more than that, he looks into the burro's eyes and touches her ears. And for a few seconds, the burro is free and even seems to laugh, because love does that. Love frees. And it's a beautiful poem for me, because it reminds me of how sometimes we just do witness the suffering of others, and even just offering that eye contact and that tender care can make a difference even in that moment, knowing that the burro's life isn't going to change drastically. But, and then also, I mean, it acknowledges the pain. It's not saying this is all going to get better, but it also just acknowledges the sweet tenderness of love and how much that can actually affect us all. So I want to share some of the practical tips that I've been using with clients throughout the year, and then just some, you know, general advice, and then some tools that I've been using therapeutically. So most of us have Zoom fatigue at this point. We've had many awkward Zoom encounters where everybody's talking over each other. And I don't know about you all, I have 7- and 9-year-old kids, and they don't just sit and talk on Zoom to their grandparents. It's kind of awkward, and there's a lot of action and activity, and that's just kind of exhausting. So I think that if you're tired of Zoom, if you're tired of using Zoom, like maybe the weekly dinners, Zoom dinners you were having with friends is starting to grow old, there are other ways that we can use technology to continue to engage, using some of our own local resources here in town. So Aperture, our local art house theater, has movies that you can stream online, and it's fun to like make a date with a friend or family member to stream this movie on the same night, pop your popcorn, maybe you can FaceTime while you're watching it or talk about it afterwards, but just know that you have this date where you're both doing the same thing at the same time, maybe texting back and forth funny lines that you've heard, or connecting during the movie. The Winston-Salem Symphony also has symphony that you can stream, older performances that you can watch and rewatch, and you can schedule to do that again with friends and family members and discuss later. And Improvement, I don't know if many of you have heard of that, but it's a collaboration between Wake Forest Dance and our neuroscientists and researchers at the Stick Center, where it's a Thursday night class and it's improv, dancing, and movement. And I know several people who attend that class, and they say that it's the funnest thing they do all week. It's every Thursday, maybe at 7 p.m., but you can connect with the Stick Center to find out information for that class. And it's Zoom, like it's live and you're interacting with others, and it might be awkward, but it's also kind of fun, I think, to get out of your comfort zone a little bit. You can also do virtual game night. So there's board games that you can play online. Some of them have a fee, some of them don't. And that's a different way to connect, especially with family members. And Airbnb also offers tours. Sounds like Deb did something similar last time, but you can go online and take, like, your family can schedule a tour of Greece, and you'll have a virtual tour guide take you through the city streets and ruins. So those are technology, practical tips, and then there's some physical tools that you all probably know about and would reference for your the people that you work with as well. But body pillows, just having something physical there to hold on to. Weighted blankets actually gives you the sense of calm and ease. And one of my favorite authors talks about how a cat in the bed is like, a purring cat in the bed is the equivalent to 3 glasses of wine. So enjoy your pets, enjoy whatever you can grab onto a dog or a cat. I always say this with a disclaimer because I don't want to encourage older adults to get a pet that's going to trip them up, something to fall under. Whenever somebody gets a new puppy, I'm just like, I don't know, we'll see how it goes. But sometimes they surprise me and it ends up being more joy than trouble. And then hobbies too. I know a lot of people have picked up on new hobbies this year. That's nothing new, but I would say if you're going to pick up a new hobby, that it should be something that either requires you to interact with other people in terms of connection or forces you to get outside. So photography is a great example. Unless you're photographing your bookshelves or your fruit bowls, you go outside and do some exploring there, and then you're going to want to share it with people. So it's a great way to connect. Genealogy has been a really great way for people to get involved in what I consider time travel, and just travel in general, to explore your ancestry, a different time, a different place, connect, and then share it with the rest of your family as a gift to them is a really great way to connect. Forest bathing is my favorite hobby that I've really embraced this year with my kids. It's a fancy term it's a Japanese practice, but it basically means just going out in nature and using all 5 of your senses to really immerse yourself in that world. And connecting with nature is one of the best ways that we can have a sense of wholeness. We're not alone in this world. There's something bigger than us, and we're all connected to nature. So, going out, I will tell you my favorite place, but I don't want it to get crowded. Okay. I love to go out to the trails behind Renolda House and like touching the bark, listening to the stream, standing on the little bridges and watching the water, go down the stream, watching the ducks cut across the lake, and smelling the trees there. And taking your time and like choosing one of those 5 senses at a couple different places, and there's also a labyrinth. That's an art installation. That's a mindfulness and meditation tool as well, to kind of work out whatever is weighing on your mind, to go through that space and walk through the labyrinth. If I see you there, I will awkwardly wave and smile in my mask. So those are all just sort of practical tips. Now I want to talk about some of the therapeutic tools that I have been working on individually with clients this year who are suffering from loneliness. Self hugs. I don't know about you all, but there's nothing like a hug. And I miss hugging everybody. I love all the nodding and smiling. I miss, we're like, are we huggers here? Yes, I miss the hugs. And self hugs actually can release oxytocin in the same way that a hug from another individual, 20-second hugs, they've done, this is science, to get the full effects of the endorphins and oxytocin, you need to hug someone for 20 seconds and like really hold them. And we can do this to ourselves as well. So squeeze those biceps, rub your arms, wrap your hands around your waist, and just allow yourself to feel held in that moment. We can do it. Also, butterfly hugs, where you link your thumbs, if you guys want to do it with me, link your thumbs and then do this bilateral tapping on your chest. It makes me feel relaxed instantly. It's just a thank you guys for humoring me. Just do left, right, left, right, left, right, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. This looks so cool on video. It's therapy. This is therapy. It makes you feel calm. And it's also a way to practice self-compassion. So self-compassion is, along with forest bathing, self-compassion is like my favorite tool that I've used this year for my own loneliness. I would say none of us have really been on our A game this year. I don't know, maybe this is your year. I don't know. I might be wrong. But for most of us, because we can't go and do the way we normally would, and we're not getting a lot of influence or interaction with others, there are days that just feel slow and groggy, and maybe I'm in my sweatpants all day or day after day, and I start to feel this shame creep in that says you're lazy, you're no good, you're unlovable, there's something wrong with you, you can't keep up. I mean, and it's ridiculous because we're in the pandemic and none of this is an accurate reflection of me. But it does happen. We have this negative self-talk when we start to feel low. A lot of us have had, I think, more low moods this year than we normally do on a given year, because joy has been a little bit harder to grasp and reach. So self-compassion means basically that you give yourself permission to not be great all the time. Kristen Neff is a PhD researcher. You can Google her and find a wealth of information about mindful self-compassion. My favorite self-compassion practice is envisioning an older, wiser me, or it could be a wiser person in general, a spiritual guide, God, it could be even just the bright, shining sun. I envision Glinda, the Good Witch of the North, coming down in her bubble in all her beauty and glory. And she's just looking so kindly on me saying, it's okay. It's okay if you're not at your best right now. It's okay if you are not on your A game. You're going through a pandemic. Life is hard. As used to this as we are, life is still really hard. I actually have a little, I wasn't going to share this with you all, but I have a little figurine. I found her on a roadside stand. And she's not exactly Glinda, but when I saw her, I was like, that's kind of close. She also has creepy little hands, but she reminds me that it's okay. I'm not going to be at my best. I mean, that's the other thing about the work that I do is that, and you all too, we are helping other people, but we're not always at our best ourselves. And so sometimes it feels like we are shorting other people of our services and the goods that we have to offer. In reality, who is going to be at their best all day, every day anyway? And so we have to give ourselves some grace. So self-compassion is giving yourself some grace, doing a little butterfly hug, or just rubbing your arms and just saying, it's okay if you're not feeling great right now. This is a really hard time for you. Look at what you're going through. Look at what everybody is going through. This won't last forever. It's okay if you're not feeling your best right now. EFT tapping is something that you can also find on YouTube. There's a wealth of resources out there. It's recognizing that that you have pain, which is also a component of self-compassion. Both of these, you first have to recognize that you feel the pain. Taking full responsibility for your well-being, rating your loneliness or your pain on a scale of 1 to 10, noticing where you're feeling it physically. So doing that mindfulness moment that we did at the top of my talk is a great way to get in touch with, like, the center, get in touch with your body. Where are you feeling your stress? Where are you feeling the pain? And then you're going to tap your meridian points, which you'll see on YouTube videos, are here and here and here and here. And while you're tapping, you're going to address the negative emotion that you're having. In this case, it would be loneliness. And then you're going to address an underlying truth, an underlying positive truth about your situation. So you're going to say, even though I'm so lonely, I choose to love and accept myself. Even though I'm lonely, I choose to love and honor myself. Even though I'm lonely and I feel I don't have anyone to love me, I don't have the support I need or the love I crave, I know I can love myself. Even though I'm so lonely, I choose to deeply and completely love and honor and accept myself. Even though I'm so lonely, I choose to relax and feel safe now. And you can continue you can do it just with one hand like I did, or you can also do the bilateral tapping, which I actually prefer. Again, that's on YouTube for you to watch later. And there's also My Tree or loving kindness meditation. It's a great way to connect with yourself, to remind yourself of the love and worth that you have, and also to extend love and kindness to others through spirit. It's not really anything new or different from praying, but most of us here in the Bible Belt know the power and practice of prayer. And so this is something that's just a little bit different. But you first want to repeat these phrases to yourself, and then you want to repeat them with the image of the person you're closest to in your mind. And then you're going to imagine somebody a little bit further out of your home. And you're going to go out to maybe the greater community, maybe the nation as a whole, maybe our whole world. You might want to focus on somebody who pops into your head. You might be surprised at who shows up. Maybe it's somebody who's hurt you or harmed you, and you might find yourself extending loving kindness to them. But you're going to do some deep breathing and feel centered, and then you're going to say this to yourself: may I be happy, may I be safe, may I be healthy, may I give and receive appreciation. And then you're going to focus on the person closest to you. May they be happy, may they be safe, may they be healthy, may they have love and appreciation. And then continue out in the world. And you end up getting a sense of connectedness through that practice. Also, shaking. Shaking is, I'm like mentioning all my favorite things and then talking about how they're my favorite things, but shaking is, so what happens to us and has happened to us this year is that we experience a lot of stress, but we have to keep going. And the caregivers I work with especially, they don't have time to say, oh, I'm stressed, let me take a minute to do some deep breathing exercises, or I'm going to go for a nice long walk, or I'll take a bath now. We don't have the ability or capacity to do that as caregivers, and most of us don't have the ability to do that anyway, just like going through our day-to-day. So we pack in all that stress. It has nowhere to go. It builds up inside of our body. We don't have time to get it out in any other way, but what you can do is shake your body. And if you guys want to do this with me too, just to humor me, you can. It's a great way to get the stress out, to shake your hands. Now, if you have arthritis, if you have an old shoulder injury, you may have some limited mobility, you can shake whatever is available. Your toes, your knees, your whole body, just wiggle. You can turn on African drum music. It's also free on YouTube. Man, my kids and I have a blast. We've had a long day. We turn on some African drum music. We shake our whole body, and everybody's happy at the end of that 10 minutes. It's instant. It's easy. It doesn't do it for 3 minutes. Do it while you're brushing your teeth. It gets it out. It actually is a legitimate way to get the stress out of our body. It has to go somewhere. And so physical movement is one of the best things we can do for it. The deep belly breaths that I told you about, is also a fantastic way just to find time to center throughout the day, even when you can't do anything else. You can deep breathe wherever you are, whenever it is. The more stressful event that you're experiencing, the better to do it. And it's great to start it off in the first thing in the morning before you even get out of the bed, just as it's a muscle memory, reminding yourself, this is what I feel like when I'm relaxed. I may not feel it again until I remind myself to have this deep belly breathing. And finally, there's something called a 10-10-10 worksheet. And this is listing your 10 most exciting desires of things you want to do, and then listing 10 things that you're grateful for today, and then listing 10 things that you love to do. And I will say, most people have an easy time doing the things that they're grateful for, things that they love doing, but those top 10 most exciting desires of things you want to do, they are really hard. Some people will come back and only have 2 out of the 10 listed, maybe 3. And I'll say, why? And it's because we get so used to having our dreams limited that we stop dreaming altogether. And I don't know that that's the healthiest thing for us. I think it's maybe if you're in a place when you're younger and you think the world is mine, maybe it's okay if somebody says, well, let's focus on just like making the grade right now. Then, but I do think that we get this tendency to stop dreaming altogether and stop fantasizing and thinking about things that excite us. Somebody comes back to me and they'll say, I can only think of a couple of things, and I'll say, I'll mention how I will.
Oh, okay. I'm going back pretty soon.
Okay.
I'm on a Zoom training right now. Almost, I was lost.
Oh
yeah.
I will. I'll mention some of mine, which is, I want to go kayaking down the river in Belize. Like, maybe I'll never actually get to do that, especially not during the pandemic, but I sure like to think about it. There are still, countries that I want to visit. Of course, I can't go there now, but I still want to think about it. And I think that that's a good practice. Of course, we can't take on the world. We're not going to become ski champions at the age of 75, but it's kind of fun. Sorry, Anne. But it's still fun. It's fun to think about it. And we lose that tendency to dream big when we can't pursue everything. But that's another way that our heart ends up getting kind of closed up. And so taking the time, maybe it takes a few weeks to think of all the things that you're excited about, but just the practice in and of itself is a reminder that it's okay to get excited about things. So finally, and I wish that I had done this Google search, this time last year, or maybe in April or May or June, whatever it was that we started to realize this was going to be long-term. But I Googled, I started thinking about like who has experienced this level of isolation. And so I started Googling it, and it's astronauts and Buddhist monks. Now they do it intentionally, like they know they're going into it, they're signing up for it, and they have training to prepare themselves for it. But there's some really great articles about how they practice mindfulness and they structure their day. And then they talked about how astronauts on missions, monks in their practice, any kind men and women in the military, any missions, people generally hit a wall at 6 months across the board in all of these fields. And we all noticed it around August, like the end of summer, beginning of fall. I think we all collectively hit a wall where we're like, ugh, we can't do anymore. Oh, but here we go. We have to keep doing this. So that was interesting too, just to know like our bodies are not designed to do this long term. And we have to be extra diligent in how we're going to fight back against the effects of it. So monks said that if you feel lonely, you need to create your own community of your heart, mind, and nature. So that's another example of going out in nature and allowing yourself to feel like you're part of something bigger. Astronauts say that they survive isolation by staying busy and making a schedule. They do meaningful work. They set daily or weekly goals. They break their day up into parts, and then they transition each part with a little bit of exercise, so maybe a little bit of shaking. They get 8 hours of sleep, 3 to 4 hours of leisure, 3 to 4 hours of personal projects, 1.5 hours of exercise, 2 hours on meals, 30 minutes on hygiene, and then the rest is on the work that they need to do for the day. They both say, both the monks and the astronauts have this practice of don't dwell on the negatives and forgive yourself of any mistakes. And then communicate expectations. So we're still in communion. If you are living with someone else, you're still in communion with them, even if you can't stand them at this point. I will also say, like in my practice, I can tell you most people are really tired of their housemates. And so it's great to communicate expectations, to gather around the table, to be intentional about how you're going to divide household duties if possible. I know that's not always possible. Sometimes you're the carer and you aren't able to split it up. But if it is possible, split up your household duties, talk about what went well that week, and then what you want to do differently the next week, and just continue to live in communion with the people in your house. Do fun things with each other. Maybe it's a weekly movie or your favorite board game. And set expectations, mentally prepare for the long haul. Remind yourself of the big picture. This isn't going to last forever. And then take care of yourself as if you're on a mission. And then I will also just say that if you are working with people who you feel like need extra help during this time, you can go to Psychology Today and find therapists who take their insurance, and look on their websites and find someone that has a similar sense of values as you or your client or the people that you're working with would. Man, I ran through all of that. I guess we can open it up to questions if we have time.
Great, thanks, Kim. Yeah, we've got about 10 minutes, I think. So if you have a question or a comment, you can unmute yourself or enter something in chat. So now's your time.
It's interesting. I was on a Zoom call with another colleague in our industry who says, I know what depression is, and people are getting depressed as a result of COVID, certainly. And she said, and she pointed to her head and she says, not here, but when you said that weighted blanket, and I have one and I love it, but she said, I imagine that she says, I can sense that I have this invisible one on me when I get up every day. You said, you know, walking around the house in your sweats, but she said, that's the sense she's got. And I thought, what an apt description of how this time feels. And one of my solutions has been, you know, working from home, but I'll dress up. In fact, I forgot to put on my jacket today just because I want to feel good. I guess for, you know, a lot of women, it's the favorite pair of shoes or something. So, but yeah, I've dressed up more during this time than I have in the last 3 years, even if I'm not going anywhere, and it kind of helps get me through the day.
Yeah, that's great advice. I took the opposite approach and got depressed. But I will, and then I will tell you, I got my vaccines through as a hospital employee, and I made my first hair appointment, and it made me, I was like, didn't realize, as it turns out, if I'm taking care of myself, it actually does make me feel better. I mean, I spent a lot of time as a feminist saying like our outward appearance doesn't reflect at all what we have inside, but there's also some truth to like, just take care of yourself, you know, floss your teeth, do a plank, do a 10-second plank, and put on a button-up shirt. There you go.
Kim, I've got an observation and a question. Observation is your example of the Buddhist monks makes me think of the distinction between solitude and loneliness. There's some value in solitude, but then loneliness gets into a different kind of realm. The question is, I've had conversations with some folks recently who, and there was actually a feature on the news last night about as now people are beginning to face the possibility of getting out again, there's this sort of social anxiety that has set in. People are so used now to not interacting that there's anxiety about having to interact again. Any comments on that, or have you run into that with some folks you're working with?
Yes, I feel super awkward in all social interactions, even though I talk to people all day, every day, and can talk to a group, like this. But man, I ran into a neighbor and I'm like, hey, you. It's so terribly awkward. It's, I will say, like, our brains are constantly being rewired and rewired based on our experiences. And we have all had a restructuring of the wiring of our brains during this year of not being able to, we've lost nouns because we're not talking as often and just making small talk. And we've lost the ability to talk about much because not much is going on. And we'll get it back. But it's going to take some practice. Our brains will be rewired again, but it's going to take exposure and experience, and it's going to be awkward for a while. And also I will say too, that there's like that clinching, like I was mentioning when Bob and I ran into each other, hey, good to see you. But also my belly was like instantly tight because of this like anxiety that I think have been conditioned to experience when we see another person outside of our home, or me anyway, because I'm home all day, every day for the most part. And so there is some fear. And what are we going to do? Like, I'm vaccinated, you're vaccinated. We might still be a little terrified to be in communion with each other. There's still so much uncertainty. And I think that it's just going to take time is the answer. To feel comfortable and safe, and to lean in on science and what we know and the reports that are coming out, and to allow ourselves to not be led by anxiety, but just to follow the science, and then also just to give ourselves some grace, knowing that it's going to take some time to practice getting our social skills back.
Have you found?
Sorry.
Go ahead, Bob.
I was going to say a follow-up on that. As I'm hearing all this and are transitioning back, I'm concerned for all of us that think of all those projects that got set aside, and there's going to be this rush to get back to normal. So what is normal is overcommitting and overdoing and burning ourselves out. So I see these kind of waves coming for us as a society, as a culture and industry, professionals working, trying to, do everything. And so I hope we'll commit maybe to learning to just take it slow as we ease back in and set some boundaries for ourselves. I can see another post-COVID crash, emotionally, professionally.
And I would comment that I hope we have that prerogative in the work setting, that we can set a pace, a gradual pace to peak, rather than expectations that we're going to accomplish all this stuff right when we get back. We're going to go back full force. We're going to get those meetings going. We're going to be out on the road. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. I'm not willing to go that far back to things as they were. But my question for you, Kim, is have you found more people reaching out to you during this time, since we're so isolated, and has there been considerably more depression? Are people really taking that opportunity to seek some assistance and counseling?
Yes, mental health is booming, for better or worse. I mean, for worse, but it's my profession. So it has been a very busy year. We got absolutely slammed with the memory counseling program, with people just desperate for connection. And then in my private practice as well, I will say, like, I ventured out, to go fully into private practice at the end of January. And by mid-February, 2 weeks later, I was full. My practice was already full, with people getting new referrals every single day, all older adults, and then younger adults also trickling in, but people who are failing in their relationships, they are sinking into depression because they are just in their homes all day because of what I was saying, like we are wired for connection, and when we don't get that, we lose a sense of ourselves. And Zoom doesn't quite cut it. Like we need to be in person with other people in communion, and our souls are dying, I think, in a lot of ways, and it's been really tragic to witness. But the good thing is that people are accessing mental health, and probably more now than ever because we can do it virtually. So some of the barriers that caregivers have had in the past, they don't have that now. They can get on Zoom. They don't have to worry about finding somebody to fill in for them while they're away from their home. It also creates a separate barrier, which is that some people can't speak comfortably in their home on a video session, but they'll sit out in their car. I've talked to people hiding in a guest bedroom closet, in their car, in the grocery store parking lot, wherever, but they're accessing it, which has been good.
Kim, I have a question. Do you have advice or thoughts on how people should start thinking about a new normal?
Oh, I will say professionally, a lot of my colleagues and I are all approaching this very differently based on our personalities in general. And I think that that's kind of just the way things are, since we don't really have clear direction of what it's going to look like. I am forever optimistic and hopeful and get excited about things pretty easily. And so I encourage other people to get excited. Of course, I meet people where they are, but I'm also more inclined. I believe it's okay to get excited now. Maybe getting excited back in August would have been dangerous because we had to, like the monks or the astronauts said, like we have to, what did they say? In setting expectations, mentally prepare for the long haul. That was important in August. And I don't think that that's as important now. I think that we can cautiously get excited, understanding that there are all these other variants and maybe this is going to go on a long time, but there's also good news in the newspaper every day that makes me excited. And I choose to lean into the good news. I can't. Back in October, I limited my news intake, and I'm primarily only reading positive news, and that improves my mood drastically. And I know that the world will keep on turning whether or not I know everything, all the good and the bad. Does that answer your question?
Did you say one of the techniques is called My Tree?
It's My Tree meditation, MAITRE.
Okay.
MAITRI. My Tree.
Okay, like Asian. Okay. All right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So Kim, you said you would send resources to me, and I can send those out
Yes.
to folks.
Yes.
Okay.
I'd be happy to do that.
Okay. Well, folks, I think our time is up. We could probably remain engaged with Kim for a while. Kim, you're so welcoming and inviting, and those who come to you for counseling are fortunate to have found you, and I know you're contributing much to their well-being. So thank you for what you're doing in our community. Thank you for your presentation today. Thanks everybody for attending. Next month we will welcome, we're still trying to figure out how to pronounce her last name, Dr. Allison Gagnon, not sure. She's from the UNC School of the Arts, and she has done research and is doing a program on interactive music and dementia care. So we're excited to hear from her and hear about the groundbreaking work that she's doing in that area. So any final words from anyone before we move on with the rest of our day?
Thank you, Kim. Good talk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank
Kim. Everyone have a great day, and
Thank
we'll,
you.
it will be spring when we gather again.
Ah, beautiful.
Hey.
I really enjoyed it. It was a blessing. Certainly was a blessing. Everybody be blessed.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.